Hello and a very warm welcome to our second session about technology, technology for the future of learning. I am Gail Watson. For those who don't know me, I'm the director of ThinkSkills. We specialize in supporting incredible virtual classroom experience. We train subject matter experts. We help with design and course production. Of course, we've got a wonderful international team of producers. Lisa, my colleague, is one of them. I spent a lot of time with trainers due to our role, and a lot of you in the room today are. And with a lot of you have come to ask me what tools should they look into to improve their impact and scale up delivery. And this is how this series is born. So last time we had Melissa from the Onicon work. And today we're going to have a very exciting sessions with Stella colleagues. But as usual, I would like to start with a word of warning. I do believe in every single tool we are going to share with you in this session, in those sessions. But a tool is only as good as the person who is using it. So it cannot solve the lack of clarity in goals, too many learning objectives, poor processes, badly done need analysis, and lack of engagement in a workforce. But AI will change the way we work. It happened that this week with learning technology conferences, the Autumn Forum, and I've chaired quite a few sessions. And across the board, we only talked about AI, and still I can share about world of learning if there was any other topic. So we need to harness it to stay in the race. But also, as Don Taylor said, it is going to turn into a community very soon. So the sooner we harness it, the sooner we actually can make sure we actually are in control of the change. So interesting data that I found from Dr. Philippa Hartman, who is an AI specialist and that Stella knows well or met, that 12% is the highest reported learning transfer rate for online. I'm interested because how many people actually measure the learning transfer? It's probably another discussions to have, but it is a very good point to think that how is this number going to affect you? How much are you looking into when you evaluate a training program looking at learning transfer? And that's why AI can help us. But interestingly, AI has been around a bit more longer than October 22, when ChatGPT, started rocking our boat. And that's also something I think Stella wanted to point out. All those recommendations we've got on Amazon or on the internal LMS, they are AI triggered. All the nudges when you do a course and then you've got like regular questions about a topic, and the questions move to level through level. So maybe you've done Duolingo, all this kind of technology that move you level to level, and that, but sometimes reminds you of the lower sessions, lower questions, just to make sure it's cemented in your brain, in your learning. That's has been around longer than ChatGPT. What the excitement was last year with ChatGPT was generative AI. So AI being able to create content and learning how to create content, whether it's text or images or even videos or translations. I've heard that they're actually doing okay translation. And then the next step would be interactive AI. So I've just put them through the L&D processes, and we can see that at the moment they sit mostly into design and delivery, right? But the process of designing learning is much more than just design and delivery. And that's where we can probably start looking at gain and efficiency. So once again, quoting Philippa Hartman here, in terms of reductions in time design, 94%. If you use AI, reduction in cost of design, 92%, and increase in design quality, 96%. It is a huge gain. And if you're in training, you know the clients are really reluctant to pay and get like spend time in design. So it is definitely something. The design part is definitely the one where we probably want to look at, and where Stella's tools is really amazing. But I also would like to prompt a little bit of thinking here by Professor Daniel Schwartz at Stanford University, who is, has made his field into AI. The biggest risk of AI is that it makes us more effective at ineffective practice. And this is why we need to really look at this impact measurement that I started with. How we're going to make sure that there is an actual learning transfer. And this is why I'm so happy today to have Stella Collins with me, with the author of Neuroscience for Learning and Development. I think we're on the 3rd edition. Am I right,
Indeed.
Stella?
Yeah.
She's also the co-founder and chief learning officer of Stella Lab. And the solution is actually based on neuroscience. And that's really why I really enjoy everything that Stella brings to this party. Because it is about making sure that there is a learning transfer. So briefly, there are some of the questions we're gonna have today, and I would like to invite you to post your questions in the chat, and please introduce yourself in the chat. I apologize, I haven't invited you to do it earlier, but tell us who you are, where you're coming from, and what are your expectations from today's session. What are you expecting to learn, to gain? What kind of knowledge you feel would be valuable for you? And whilst you're telling us a little bit about you, I would like to invite Stella to also introduce herself.
Hello, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here today, and lovely to see some new faces. Usually I come into a session like this and I know at least somebody, but today I only know Gail. So really great to meet you. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what your expectations are and a little bit about you. As Gail says, I'm co-founder and chief learning officer at Stella Labs, and we're on a mission to make sure that every minute spent learning is worth it. So we really focus on helping people build skills. We focus on getting them to go from knowing to doing. I'm a huge advocate for activity as opposed to information. Information's useful. And what I want to kind of share with you today is some ideas about kind of the neuroscience of learning and how we really need to have that foundation. If we don't want to have the challenge, Gail says, or I think it was Daniel said, of making something really efficient that is ineffective, then we have to have a really solid background. So last week I was speaking at the World of Learning, and what I was talking about there was the blend. What happens when you blend neuroscience and AI? And basically you can then become very efficient at being very effective. On their own, you can be really effective at creating AI neuroscience fueled programs, but it takes a long time. If you've got both together, you can actually be efficient at being effective. So yes, SME, sorry, did I say SME, subject matter expert? I'm going to share a few slides just to get us going, if that's all right. And then what I want to do is kind of jump into the platform. Like Gail says, I'd really like it if you ask questions as we go through, and I'm happy to answer any questions as we go along. So please do kind of comment, chat, tell me what's going on for you. So I'm going to share my screen and make sure I share the right screen. And of course, then what Zoom does, it moves everything around, but I can still see all of you. So that's the main thing. I can't see the chat anymore, but perhaps that'll...
We'll monitor it for you. Don't worry, Stella.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about AI-powered blended learning, because that was the kind of topic Gail was talking about, that we want to think about how do we really blend learning to make it the most effective. I never like to say an expert, but I'm a specialist in the science of learning. I really am passionate about the science. But I actually came across AI in 1980 in one of my very first university classes. So for 3 years, we had to study artificial intelligence. And what we were looking at that point was how visual recognition worked. And at that point, now we've got facial recognition, we've got facial recreation, we can do everything kind of like up with AI. At that point, AI could detect straight lines and corners. That was as smart as it was. And at that point, everybody was super excited about it because that was as far as we got. And it was groundbreaking at the time. So all those straight lines and corners have turned into something much more sophisticated. So I've had a really long interest in AI, but I'm definitely not an AI specialist. But using AI, I think, is really valuable. So I just want to think about the challenge we currently have in kind of learning and development. So we're all in a fast changing world. We're being asked all the time to be agile and responsive. And that means that we have to learn new ideas. We have to stay ahead of the game. And that's where AI is going to help us. But we know that L&D have some quite specific challenges. And one of the things we did recently at Stella Labs was to survey L&D professionals like you up and down the country, around the globe. Actually, it was quite a broad survey. And we found that the two main challenges L&D people had were a lack of transfer. So Gail already talked about this figure of only 12% of people transfer. I'm quite positive. So I kind of like to think sometimes about 20% of people actually transfer what they're doing into the workplace, if there is nothing additional done to support them to transfer. So what we need to do is to get that number up. And if you go from 12 to 20, you're doing a great job. If you can go from 20 to 30, you're improving further. But you're never going to get to 100% transfer. That would be, a ridiculous thing to aim for. But if you could aim for 50% transfer, that would be really powerful. So that was one big problem they had. L&D recognized that they're struggling to have people actually, go from a training program, whether that's e-learning, whether that's face-to-face learning, a leadership journey blended across many different modules, actually changing that into behaviors in the workspace is a challenge. And then the other trouble they have is time to design. They don't have sufficient time to design and deliver really effective learning. And I can see people nodding there. That feels like that's a challenge for some people. So we're trying to solve both those problems, plus a whole pile more, but we're trying to solve both those problems. So first of all, I'd just like you to take part in a quick poll and just ask you, how long does it typically take you to design? And think about something like, a 2-day program, a 4-module digital program. How long does it take you to design that? And I hope that Lisa's going to put the poll up. That's fantastic. So just let us know how long it would take you.
And it's anonymous, so you can be honest about it.
Indeed.
Louisa, is the poll coming up, please?
Yeah,
yes,
we can see it.
It's up.
Oh, I can't see it, sorry. But I'm close, so that's probably why.
Okay, I think we have all the answer.
Perfect. Do you want to share the results with us?
We'll do.
So what
Thank
I
you.
can see is about 75% of people say it takes them 1 week to design a 2-day program, which I think is pretty quick, actually. Some people say it takes a month, and it kind of depends what you're designing. If you're going for content only, that is possible. If you're actually trying to design something that's aimed at transfer, the chances are it's going to take you longer because you're going to have to design more bits and pieces. And that's what I'm kind of interested in, is what are the additional things we need to design that support real learning? So AI is fantastic. It's really useful because it can generate information really fast. And ChatGPT, and there are many other, options. ChatGPT can generate information really, really fast, which is incredibly useful if you have to generate information in order to design. However, information is not enough for learning. I don't know any of you, so I don't know what your practices are, but many people see content as a proxy for learning, and content isn't a proxy for learning. Content is just the start of a learning process, and shortly I'm going to describe a learning process to you. But again, I'm going to ask you a question, and I'd like to kind of see what you're saying in the chat here. How did you learn to ride a bike? Or you can call out. That would be equally nice. How did you learn to ride a bike?
Practical trial and error.
Practical trial and error. Yes, you had to do it, didn't you? And fall off quite a few times. Yeah, what else?
Experiencing it in the gradual sense of how the things are progressing and taking decisions as we progress further when we're driving.
Okay, so there was lots of decision points in riding a bike, aren't there? You start off on a little bike with trainer wheels,
Yes.
maybe with your mum or dad running behind you.
Yes.
Then you take off the wheels when you feel you've made the decision that I think I'm ready to take off the wheels. And then you maybe graduate to a bigger bike, but you're still not out on the road yet. You're still, stuck in your garden or the school playground or something.
Step by step.
Step by step. So it's a very step-by-step process.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen in a week. And yet we expect people to become leaders by going on a 1-week training course. We expect people to become better at designing training by sitting through a LinkedIn Learning set of videos. And I've done a LinkedIn Learning. If you go to LinkedIn Learning, you can find my course on how to use neuroscience in learning and development. That's not how people learn. We learn by doing things step by step. We learn with support. We learn by gradually changing what we do. And I really like what you said about decisions, MK, sorry. We can't learn to ride a bike or anything else simply by watching a video or reading a book. They're a great starting point, but they're not sufficient. So, sorry, that question you probably didn't spot it. How can AI help us create fast and deliver impact? How can it help us build skills, not just deliver content? And this is one of the big challenges around ChatGPT at the moment. It's being used to create content. So this is the GEAR model of learning. This is our model at Stella Labs. It's a really well-researched model. I've used years and years of academic research, learning science research, neuroscience research, huge amounts of practical experience working with real clients in real projects. And we've had it validated by the University of Antwerp as well. So we know it's a well-rounded model. And it's a model of how does learning actually happen. And this is how we need to design learning. And this is what, if we're designing learning, we need to be aiming for. So the aim at the top up there on the right-hand side is transfer. That's what we're trying to do, help people put their skills into practice in the workplace. Even if it's knowledge, they need to use that knowledge to do something. It might be decision-making, it might be supporting other people, but they need to use the knowledge. Knowledge stuck in their heads is of no value to anybody. Then what they need is, if you see the green line that runs through this, if you want a learner to transfer their learning into the workplace, they have to be motivated to do that. And at any point in a learning journey, you're going to go up and down in terms of your level of motivation. It's really easy in a learning journey to get stuck when, I've fallen off my bike 6 times. I'm never going to get there. I'm a leader and I've just made the most horrible mess in a one-to-one conversation. I'm never going to be a good leader. We have those moments where we're feeling, we're never going to get there. So we need to help people, support people to maintain that kind of mindset and motivation to keep trying, to keep persisting. So that's really important. Then there's the guide piece. And this is the piece that, content is useful here. If you imagine you go to a new city, and you've never been before, you can just wander around aimlessly, a bit like wandering around an LMS with lots of information in it. You might find some good things. You might find some bad things. You might find some things. You might find nothing at all. You might just kind of wander down the wrong streets. If you go with a guide, whether it's a book or a person, it doesn't really matter. They will show you where the key points are, where are the valuable things to go and look at in the first place. That's a really important part of learning and happens a lot in a lot of organizations. They're good at guiding you to find information, possibly guiding you to have an experience. But then what you need to do is experiment with that information or experience to make it real for yourself. If you go back to the city analogy, you might have gone to the Grand Square, the Grand Place, as they call it in Brussels. You might have gone there in the day, and now you think, I'm going to experiment. I'm going to go with it in the evening and see what it's like in the evening. That's a kind of a test of, can I do this in a different way? Can I take my trainer wheels off? You're starting to experiment. Then the piece that's really important is the apply. I need to apply this in the real space where I'm going to use it. I need to have opportunities to practice. I need to be supported to practice and try things. And I'll get them wrong sometimes, but that's okay. I need to get feedback so that I can actually start to get it right again. And then the R is the retain piece. This knowledge and skills need to be retained for the long time. And we know that, for instance, spaced repetition, Gail already talked about Duolingo, is a really effective way of making sure we retain information for the long term. But what we need to retain skills for the long term is spaced practice. So spaced repetition, spaced practice, and extending the learning journey into a kind of a mastery. You know, if once you've mastered riding your bike on the road, then you get a bigger bike or you get a racing bike and you go in. You know where I'm going to on this. So this gear model is how learning actually happens. And it doesn't matter whether you're learning technical skills, soft skills, even if you're learning information, because you need to use the information, it still works. It's a universal kind of model of learning. But most training stops about here. Some good training stops after the experiment because you get that opportunity to practice in a workshop, apply it. But not very much training goes beyond that. We tend to, especially as external suppliers, external trainers, we don't always feel we've got the impact, the ability to go back into the business and say, are your people applying this? How are they applying it? And can we check whether they're applying it? We can't validate it. So these are some of the problems that we know happen. These are some of the problems that we're working on with our platform. So what I want to do now is to take a deep breath and a glass of water. And I'm going to take us off the slides and into our platform and just give you an example of how our platform works. Are there any questions at the moment?
No. Just a silly question. Are the slides being shared after this meeting, and the recording is also shared after the meeting? Because this is really informative.
Oh, the recording is definitely going to be shared. Stella,
I'm happy to share the slides.
Yeah.
If you want to.
Excellent. Yes.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
we will.
Thank you so much, Stella. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And while you're getting ready, Stella, I'm curious to see how you all are trying to, engage your participants to a program into applying their learning in real life. So is there anything that you've tried and practiced? So you can please use the chat while Stella is getting ready.
Yes, sure.
Thank you.
I'm just trying to drag you all back onto my main screen because you've all disappeared, which is sad. I don't want you to be disappeared. I want to be able to see
We're
you.
here. We're here.
I know you're there. I know you're there. It's just on my screen. You've disappeared. Never mind. I can see you down there. So I know you're there. Okay. So this is the front end of our platform. Can you see that?
Yep.
Good.
Perfect.
Okay. So these are programs that have already been created. Some were created before we had the AI to support our program. Some of them have been created since. What we're going to do is we're going to jump straight in and create a new journey. And you have the option of doing it from scratch. This is a design and delivery tool. So you can just start from scratch if you want, or let's use the AI because it makes things so much quicker. So I've talked about behaviors and being able to see what people's skills are. So what I'm going to invite you to do is we're going to create a journey together on a specific skill. So would somebody like to suggest a specific skill that we could use?
Project management.
Project management. Now, there is a list there and project management is amongst them. We could have done anything. It'll create, I've seen circus tricks. So who is our target audience? Who would you like to create this program for? And the more specific you are here, the more aligned it will be to the audience.
Probably an Olympic stadium. So it will be someone, probably different country players.
Is it like building the stadium, Manikan?
Yeah, yes.
So
Okay,
it would be like construction
based, yeah.
Okay, and who would it be who specifically would want this project management training? Project managers?
Yeah, probably the project managers who are working on that.
or the architects?
Architect.
Architects?
The construction project manager, the junior project manager.
Junior, okay,
Yeah.
so a junior project manager. And then we know the industry is construction.
Construction.
Okay. Now currently we can give you a choice of English, Dutch or French creation. We'll soon be able to do some of the other common European languages, like I know we've got Spanish and German coming up. But we'll stick to English because I think that's the language of today.
Yeah, that's great.
So we're going to press next. And then what you're going to see is the system is going to go and ask AI, if you had junior project managers who are already good at project management, what behaviors would you expect to see? So feel free to call out some behaviors that you would expect to see in junior project managers who are good at project management.
Yes.
Okay. So what the system does, it suggests 5 behaviors to start with. Why is this useful? Because when you get a client come to you or somebody in your business come to you, say, we need a project management course. And you say, and what would you like people to be able to do after they've finished that project management course? And they say, manage projects. That's not useful. What this enables you to do is to have a conversation with that person, that stakeholder, and say, okay, so have they already got the skills of project planning? No, they haven't. Well, let's start that one then. How about risk management? Are they good at that? No. Well, we need to have them do that. So it gives you an opportunity to have a conversation with these people, and any of these can be edited. So if the person you're talking to, your stakeholder, sort of says, well, it's not to all stakeholders, it's only to, I don't know, they need to create changes to their, let's not say all stakeholders, just team members.
Probably the suppliers or specific.
Suppliers, okay.
Yeah.
So you can edit any of those to be more specific to the particular challenges of this particular organization.
And Charles suggested we could add procurement. So do you want to show us how we add a custom behavior?
I can indeed. So we say procurement. And then, Charles, what would you say about procurement? I'm not very up on procurement. What would you say about, oops. Sorry, let me go back.
Good question. I'm not a project manager really, but I mean, procurement is all about sourcing materials, specifying the requirements of the materials.
I've lost myself. Hang on, let me just go back again. This is the challenge of doing it
live. You're doing great.
Sure, absolutely, that's fine.
What do we say?
Junior project managers.
We'll have to wait for it to come back again.
Construction.
Okay. It's going to go through that little job again. But Charles, you're absolutely right. You can add anything in. So if you think something additional is required, then you can add it in. And you can see it should be quite easy to add it in. I just hit the wrong button. Each one of these becomes a module in the training journey. So what you don't want to do is to end up with 10 modules, unless you're really going to space this over time. But we recommend about 5, and then you can add, you can add another one. And if we decide you wanted procurement, and we add a description.
Specifications? Was it something about specific?
Yeah, specifying the material requirements, sourcing potential suppliers, running appropriate purchasing techniques. Do you tender? Do you go direct to specialist suppliers? That sort of
So if we wanted to add that one in, then we just type it in and then tick it. For the purposes of this meeting, I'm actually going to untick all of them apart from one, because it obviously takes a few minutes for each one to generate. So we're just going to stick with project planning. So it will create for each one of those, it would create something, but just for purposes of time, I want to do it as quickly as it can. So we're going to ask it to create, and what it's going to create is a module with all those gear elements in it. So it's going to think about motivation. How do we keep people motivated? And give us ideas. It's going to guide people with information, knowledge, content. It's going to now enable people to experiment in a safe place. And for that, it's going to create scenarios. It's going to create work-based actions, and I'll talk about those a little bit, and it's going to create spaced repetition questions. So it takes it a few minutes to do its little bit of work. And then basically what you get is a journey that looks like this. So as a designer, you come in and this is what you see. So you can see down the side, we've got the skills. We haven't specified a business objective yet, but that's really useful that you do specify that so that your learning, your training fits with the business objective. In the next iteration we're bringing out, we're deliberately going to ask people what their business objective is. It tells you the behaviors and it tells you the language. So if we had a long program with 5 modules, you'd see all those modules down there. We've only chosen one. So it's already generated an essentials piece, a get started piece, which is a very standard piece about, you know, introduce yourself to other people, an introduction to the trainer if there's a trainer involved, because this could well be a blended program. It will also ask people where they place themselves, a kind of survey where they place themselves with their current skills and how excited they are about getting started, how motivated they are, and gets them to really think about, you know, here are the objectives of the program, but what are the objectives? What's in it for you? So it's just generating,
Yeah.
and yes, go ahead.
Stella, just a quick question here. I just wanted to know, like, how is it different from ChatGPT? Because even in ChatGPT, when we give them a prompts, like the insights, then it will modify the questionnaire and comes up with an answer for that particular questionnaire. So what do you think? What is your opinion on that?
So it's using ChatGPT in the background.
Okay.
But what it's doing is it's already created a structure. So instead of you having to go through and ask ChatGPT and learn which questions to ask, we've already created all those questions. Those questions are all built in.
Okay.
So you're not having to go through. And then the other thing that is different to ChatGPT is if ChatGPT creates a lot of content for you, you've then got to implement it somewhere. You've got to put it in your LMS, or you've got to, you know, you've got to create it. This is already implemented. So
it does ask right questions, and also it does gives us a integrated or a virtual platform where we can implement the scenarios so that we have an idea of how the things might go, and then how things can happen.
What essentially it does is it creates a digital grounding for a learning program. Because we do a lot of blended learning, in that experiment phase, that's where we introduce either face-to-face or digital workshops. So that for us, the way we build training is that face-to-face piece where you're actually working with people, you're getting them to do things, you're getting them to practice, you're giving them feedback in that safe environment. What this does is it means that at the beginning of those workshops, you don't have to spend all your time telling everybody what they need to know, because they've already worked on that. And it's also very interactive. So as soon as it's generated, I can show you. It creates quizzes, it creates actual activities, it creates quizzes, activities, surveys. So it's just doing an awful lot of the work you can do. And the content it generates, and I'm afraid it's taking longer than I was hoping. Let me show you one. Let me show you one I've done previously. It's probably the quickest way.
Yeah. Stella, while we're waiting for it to generate the content, perhaps, we've skipped very quickly over the specification of the modules, which may just be because of demonstrating the capacity here. But it does strike me that that's actually a very important stage of it, when, you know, philosophically, as it were, you're chopping up your big subject into its components, and by not spending enough time on that, I fear that you are in fear of going down some blind alleys. And in fact, this project management, and we were getting it to write something about project planning. I suspect if you spent a long time on designing a project management course, and, you know, just trying to sort of sketch out the landscape of it, you might come to the conclusion that actually project planning is too big a module, because project
Absolutely.
management is largely about project planning, and actually you need to break that down further into components to design a meaningful program.
Absolutely.
And the worry I get looking at the demonstration is that, we went straight into modules and now we're filling out modules. But presume, does the program sort of actually put a pause in to say, well, here are your modules, now think about that for an hour or two or longer?
It doesn't. What we're hoping is that people who use it are intelligent like you and recognize that if you get that beginning behaviors piece right first, then what is generated is more valuable. If you don't get that right, then yes, it's just generated stuff. So I totally agree with you. That's the conversation you have to have. And that's the conversation we don't always have with our stakeholders. They just say, we want a project management course, we want a time management course.
I agree with that. And actually the sort of concern.
But this enables you to give them a framework to discuss. So this should be a conversation with your stakeholder and an iterative conversation. Bearing in mind this was a junior course where they're probably just getting to grips with it. They don't need to know everything about project planning yet.
No.
They need to know the basics. But then what you could probably do is create a project planning course for the next level.
No, thank you for that. No, it's really helpful. And I think, something that learning professionals like yourself and so on, take it for granted that iteration would happen and would be very much at the center of your thoughts. A concern, I suppose, which is common to a lot of semi-automation of activities like this, is somebody in HR who isn't much of a learning and development professional just thinks, hey, look, I can play with this and knock it together. There we are. That looks all right.
At least they can do it quicker than before, and they can test it quicker and see that if it doesn't work. I mean, the challenge is they don't measure it. They're not checking whether it works or not. One of the things our platform can do, it doesn't actually generate a transfer score yet. That's what we're working on. But you can very easily track progress.
No, thank you.
I just want to show you some of the content it creates. So you can see this is one that I did earlier on active listening. It creates the guide, the information piece. It creates, which I'll show you what that looks like. It's quite wordy still, but you can edit and you can add in as many images as you want. And the AI also supports image, what's the word I'm looking for? Selection. So it takes what content there is. So it basically creates, an introduction, something about kind of understanding what it is. It creates bullet points, benefits. It can. Is warnings. I wouldn't suggest you used all of those in every module. Select what's important. Select what's vital. That's where the job as a good trainer is. It's to say, well, which of these are useful. If we go back, where are we? Active listening. So this is the piece that I think is useful. These are the work-based actions the platform creates. So in the past, we used to write these as trainers. We would write work-based actions. Now the platform automatically generates them and says, this is something that a learner needs to do when they're back in the workplace. And this is where they can invite a mentor to support them to say, I have seen Charles do active listening in conflict resolution. I've seen him do it, and here's some feedback for him as to how he did. What I think is really important here is the learner can edit these. So the learner can say, okay, well, here's an example of a work-based action, but in my situation, I need to make this my task because this is their task that they need to do in the workplace. And they put a date on it. That then goes off. It reminds them if they've done it or not. And it also sends a message to their mentor saying, Charles is about to do an exercise in, active listening. Please look out for it. Please check whether he's actually doing that. And then please give him some feedback. So it's nudging you. And then the other piece it creates is, So it also creates questions. It's only created one. It also creates questions that you can then choose to use in spaced repetition or not. So every piece of content, you're prompted to recall the information. You're prompted to play with, experiment that information. But then as the designer, you can decide which of these pieces are really important and need to go in the spaced repetition for afterwards, because you don't want people overwhelmed with every single question. And again, you can use the AI to create more questions. You can use it to reduce them, but it by default, it creates 3 spaced repetition questions for each piece of content it creates. What I'd just very, very quickly like to show you from another program. Have we got time, Gail?
Yes, we still have 18 minutes.
Okay, well, I don't want to, I think we should come out and have some conversations, but I just want to show you what I find really exciting. And I'm going to show you in a demo program, because I don't want to have real clients noted. This is a demo program that we built internally, and we asked our team to populate it. So this is not a genuine set of learners. This is just our team semi-populating in their spare time. But what I like is you get insights. You can see the data of how far people have progressed. And I know lots of programs have, completion data, how far have people got, but most programs complete when they've done the event. We're actually only saying completion happens when you've gone right through this whole journey of mastery. So my colleague Tina was extremely good. She came to 73% completion. My colleague Charlotte didn't even dive in. But as I say, this was dummy data. But you can see how well people are progressing. You can see what's their spaced repetition. Are they doing well? Does that mean they're actually learning these key things? You can check who's done work-based actions and had them validated by their mentor. And the correlation we found is, not surprisingly, where people have a good mentor who feeds back and gives them feedback, funnily enough, their progress tends to be better. So what we're able to show clients now is and clients can see for themselves now, is they can see that, Harriet is not progressing very well, but that's because her mentor hasn't given her any feedback. Her mentor hasn't been in, hasn't checked on her, hasn't given her any feedback. They can then go to those mentors and say, this is part of your job. You're supposed to be supporting Harriet. And funnily enough, Harriet's progress then improves. So for me, this is a really useful tool, whether you're a facilitator, whether you're an L&D specialist. And if the mentors have a similar track, but they can only see their own individual's progress.
I think Maniken's got a question.
Yes, I just got a question quickly.
Yeah.
Since this is a very good software, can it be implemented or integrated with our LMS software, which the current organizations have been using? And if so, how much time does it take to implement this?
It's an extremely good question. I get to dive back into project management, which is finished doing now. It can't integrate with an LMS yet, but what you can do is you can export a SCORM package.
Okay.
So you can create a SCORM package that you could then put in your LMS. What you don't, you still have the spaced repetition, you still have the work-based actions, you still, I didn't show you the scenarios, but you don't need to see everything. You still have the scenarios, but of course you can't implement, well, you can't implement that. Our system implements them automatically. You would have to find a way to do that.
Okay.
So the way I used to deliver spaced repetition questions was to set up emails that I would send to my learners. I would, schedule emails to go out to my learners across 3 months. That was really hard work. That took me a lot of time. Now this does it for me. I don't need to do that anymore.
That's true.
But yeah, if you were exporting as a SCORM, then you'd still have to do that.
So if we take an example of Moodle, like generally some of the organizations, educational institute use Moodle, Blackboard, or Canvas. So like, is it, I suppose now it's compatible and it does work fine in terms of sending the regular updates, which you're talking about, Stella, right?
No, because they're in a SCORM package, so they won't go out. You have to use, if you want to have the spaced repetition and the work-based actions tracked, monitored, then you have to use our platform.
Okay.
But if you export as a SCORM package, you've got everything there. You're just going to have to work out another way. So, the content is all there.
Yeah.
But you'd have to find out another way to send out those questions.
Okay.
They're all created for you, but you'd have to find a way to send them.
Send them. Okay, got the point. Yeah.
Can I just check, Stella, how far? We've got a couple of questions on standby. Stella, are you comfortable if we take the question now, or just
absolutely.
How do you want to wrap up the demo and then we'll take the questions?
No, take the questions now.
Well, we've got a question.
When they're energetic.
Harry, do you want to?
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Stella. I first of all, I have no idea what SCORM means. Please, may you explain?
I've no idea what the letters stand for.
Okay.
But what I do know, it's what most e-learning systems create. It's like a fixed body of mostly content.
It's a format.
Okay.
It's a format of content that
It's
can be transferred in like little package.
And almost all LMSs, all systems use SCORM as a kind of common language.
Oh, okay, thank you.
It's like JPEG for pictures or MP4 for videos.
Okay, thank you. My main question is around learner usage of the things that may be generated by using exactly what you've been showing us, which is just mind-blowingly incredible. I think it's so interesting. But the reason I'm asking, I actually had a conversation earlier today about doing some work. I run a theatre company, so I work a lot. Part of what I do is work in workshops very practically, and I'm interested in understanding like how, if you introduce this kind of technology into that sort of learning program, what might learners need to be able to access this kind of technology and these kind of resources. So literally, if I'm working with, say, young people from a particular community and background, what would they need in order to be able to draw from this following a learning program, or during and following a learning program?
So they still need access to a computer and the internet.
Yeah.
Would a phone be enough, Stella? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, I just wondered, yeah.
Not really. We started off building it on mobile, and then we've put that aside for now, because most of our clients, we don't tend to work in the kind of the educational sector. We tend to work in the corporate sector, and most of our clients weren't using mobile. You can still do the spaced repetition question on mobile, which is quite good. But yeah, they would have to have access to a PC.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that's important, particularly for something like theatre, you'd have to explain to them, it's a change process for them. They've been to the theatre before and done workshops, but I've just started an improvisation class. So, we're just playing games, but actually I'd really like some theory behind the improvisation.
Yeah.
With this, you could do some of the theory without the person in the session having to explain it. And then when you go to the session, you can do all the fun bits.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can see it for all of this. It's and all sorts of other stuff I do as well. So yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Sorry, Nikki, we're not ignoring you, but can I just step in, because I know some of the amazing work that Harry does. And for example, am I right in thinking, because they work a lot of the work that I used to see from Harry anyway was like videos. So for example, in management and leadership, they were presenting some role play, but played by professionals. So that's the kind of things that if you create a journey, you could put the video. So instead of using stuff generated automatically, once you've got your journey, you can add your preferred videos to the journey, right?
And I think what's important with things like video, and I'm just auditing program for a company right now, they're just giving people videos. Before the people read the videos, watch the videos, they're not giving them the context, why are you watching this video? And after they've watched the video, they're not checking in, what have you remembered, what have you learned from that video? That's what this platform can do. It can just, top and tail that video with some helpful context and recall opportunity.
Yeah, great point. Thank you so much.
That is great. Thank you so much, Hyatt, for great questions. Nikki, I know you've been trying to get your question in for a while. Do you want to jump in?
No, actually, I've replaced the question I was going to ask earlier, because Harriet's was so good and it really just triggered me to consider. Obviously, the benefit of virtual and blended learning is its inclusivity. And can you put prompts into the system to optimize the learning journey for neurodiverse people or different learning requirements?
So we've already built some of that in automatically. So for instance, I'm really passionate about how we write. So we've already built in that when the content is created, it's it's accessible for people with dyslexia, for instance. That's one thing. And you can't currently build that into the system, but in a sense, because of the way we're using neuroscience, the background of this program, the background of this tool, some of that is built in, because by using the neuroscience of learning, you're already building in some of that neurodiversity. I think it needs a specialist to look at what's created and say, well, for our particular group of, people who have ADHD or something, this won't work. We need to do that a different way. But that would be up to the specialist too. But we built in some basic ground rules, accessibility. That's why the colors are kind of, we looked at the UX, the colors are kind to the eyes and things. But yeah, you would have to specify. But you could actually put that in the statements at the beginning. You could put it in the behavioral statement.
That was kind of what I was wondering. Yeah, if you prompted it, could I have project management for, and be a bit more explicit than neurodiversity, like what specific aspects?
Yes.
Then will it return something? And all of it has to be verified, doesn't it? And validated.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why we as designers, we as specialist facilitators are never going to go out of fashion. We can just do more faster.
Yeah. Thank you.
That is a great question, Nikki, and that actually allow me to, if I can, and if anybody else got a questions, please raise your hand or type in the chat. But actually, I like us maybe to talk a little bit about learner journeys, because as you presented it, it's kind of a self-study kind of device, but actually it can be probably maximized if we created it around facilitated experience, right, Stella?
So absolutely. So what I didn't show you was the discussion boards. So at every point there are discussion boards. So you can definitely say to people, here's an idea, a concept, put your ideas in the discussion board. And we found that the discussion boards are really popular. Excuse me, sorry. And then the other point is the experiment piece can very much be a live session, whether that's a live digital session, a live, face-to-face workshop. It could be anything. And you just, basically just put, meet me in this Zoom room meet me in room 24 at. And that's where you can have, that real kind of, face-to-face, whether it's virtual or real contact. So
that's brilliant. So let me recap that. So for example, Harry is doing a feedback course, right, Harry? That happens. So you start maybe by creating in the platform some context, and then Harry can probably put a video of a feedback conversations gone really wrong, and then give some food for thought, for example, and then we go into virtual classroom or face-to-face sessions where we're going to discuss, best practice and,
where you should practice. You should practice giving feedback.
Absolutely, you practice and so on, and then afterwards you've got maybe some questions, some prompts that going to be spread out over a certain period of time that will come back to the learners in text, or is it only message, like is it only notifications?
The
Stella?
spaced repetition?
Yes,
email.
It's an email. So they get the email notifications, and then maybe they've got and then there is a community, like a board, where they can actually put their real life challenges and so on. So that's kind of what we're looking at, right?
And because this prompts a mentor to make contact, the mentor could choose to have that conversation just on the platform. But of course, the most likely thing is your mentor is somebody who works closely with you. They are probably likely to have a genuine conversation with you. So it kind of nudges I think one of the big challenges for managers, it's usually managers who know they should support learning. But, somebody goes on a training course, they've no idea what the topic was. They don't know, what to ask. They don't know when to ask. They don't know what's the right time to ask. This kind of prompts them to say, look, Gail has just done this exercise. Have a conversation with her. See how she felt about it. And then they can choose to do that on the platform. But they could choose just to do it for real.
Brilliant.
Hopefully they'll do both.
Brilliant. And so So how do you think that's changed the way we design and facilitate to try to bring it to an end? And it's your last chance to pop question in the chat, people. But if you want to kind of tell us a little bit, how does it change your role and the mindset of the person facilitating such experience, Stella?
So I think what it helps a facilitator do is facilitate better. So typically, you know, when I first started training, you know, you went along and I think I'm quite a good facilitator. You go along, but there was some information you had to share with people in the first place before they could get onto the practice piece. That can all be done in advance now. So as a facilitator, the time you have for facilitation, which we all know gets shorter and shorter. Companies keep saying, well, no, you can't have you can't have a week-long course anymore. You can have an afternoon. So as a facilitator, you can make the best use of that face-to-face time. You're not just having to tell people stuff that they could find somewhere else. So I think that's one of the key things. I think as a designer, it's helping you think about what are all the elements that actually go to transfer. We're not just designing content, we're actually thinking about how do you design for transfer. And one of the things that I'm very excited about the platform is it kind of makes learning really visible. So designers can see, this is how good learning works, but so can learners. So actually they're beginning to learn the process of learning as a meta skill on top of the process of project management or whatever it is, because they're beginning to see that I can't just learn by watching a video. I have to think about it. I have to ask questions. I have to be asked questions. I have to recall. I have to practice. So for me, that's what's really interesting. It's kind of introducing meta skills for designers and for learners.
That is brilliant. I really like that tool, because measuring impact is really something that I'm feeling like we should all work more towards. And as we know, when you're an external training providers, it's really hard to have business data. It's really hard to have data full stop, but to have meaningful data is even harder. And we can't really just measure bums on seats or, where they're happy with the training. That is not a good measure of learning. It's a great measure of happiness, but not necessarily of learning. They had a good time, but what's to it? And also what I like is it's spreading the learning.
Yeah.
And as we kind of seen through various research, that learning doesn't happen, like behavior doesn't transform in 1 day training or 2 days training. Even if you go for a week, you're in your bubble, and then you have to actually put it in practice. And that's why I think it's a very powerful tool, because you can link it with the manager. And is it mandatory, actually, Stella? Is it mandatory to have
It's not mandatory to have a mentor, because we know that some people don't have somebody's manager might be terrible. There's lots of reasons not to. We recommend it. You could have a peer as your mentor, so you could have somebody buddying up. It's not mandatory, because we recognize that different organizations, different people have different needs. So, for instance, some of our programs that we've done are independent trainers who probably haven't got an obvious mentor who sees them work in their everyday work.
Brilliant. Well, we are at the top of the hour. Thank you so much, Stella, for coming and explain this wonderful tool, which has a great potential. But as I said, like any tools, it's only as good as, the effort and thinking that you put into it. And as Charles reminded us as well. So that is brilliant. Thank you so much for your participations. Stella, I think there is something so you can have a demo, right? Am I right?
You can have a demo, or you can have another demo, or you can just have a free trial. You can take a 2-week trial and just have a go yourself.
Do we have a link for that? I think, Lisa.
Yes, I have posted it on the chat for the free trial.
Lovely. Thank you very much. I can't see it. Am I missing it?
I can't either. Oh, and I can see there's 21 new messages waiting below.
That is fine. We give you the
It's under Charles' message.
Can you just repost it?
Yeah,
That'd be great.
I will
Thank you very much. And without, huge thank you to everybody who contributed all these great questions. Huge thank you to you, Stella. And I'm very excited, and I hope all of us going to have projects that we can actually trial this wonderful tool. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
Stella.
Lovely
Thank
to meet
you.
you.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stella.